is we're looking at some of the verbiage in the special education sentence, and we're meeting with our director of special education tomorrow to maybe tweak a word or two.
Sure.
But I don't think it's any of these changes are substantive, and it's our goal to send it back to the chair, Mr. Webster, on Wednesday morning or tomorrow afternoon, and after your review, it will go to Mr. Prisco.
Great.
So if you have any questions, but I think we're, as I said, we're pretty much there. There's just one or two more pieces of information, and then we'll just get it to you. And then I hope to be able to attend the selectmen's meeting next Monday night, just in case if there are any questions about the school numbers, the school section of the report. I'll plan on being there next Monday night to answer those questions. Make comments.
Yeah, I would just say don't rush at this point. The accuracy of the document is more important than having numbers in this document.
I think we're pretty. I think Carl and Kathy have done a pretty in-depth research project, basically on these specific numbers to make sure we have the right numbers. So we're confident in the numbers that we have. So it's not going to be anything we rush through to get to you. It was, it took a little while to do the research online, but I think the numbers we have are solid.
Okay. We appreciate that.
I just want to state what the rationale is about the numbers. For us, what we're trying to do is to use the numbers to kind of tell a story. Make sure we understand what the numbers are. And we may not even understand every number that you read in this executive summary when we meet on November 1st. I mean, that's okay. For us, what we need to do is know what they are and then peel them back and start digging into them. And some of them are very easy to figure out. And that's what we hope that you will do with your numbers. In this document, what I'd like to try to do is revisit it every 6 months. Maybe add something to it, maybe take something away. And as you see at the very back of the document, we have some objectives. Our strategic plan now that's going to help us as selectmen kind of stay focused on what we're going to drive for the next 5 years and always try to keep it fresh. And so we're staying focused. And so we're not chasing this idea, chasing that idea, putting this fire out, putting that fire out. We can't afford to do that any longer. If you just look at the numbers in the on the second page, you can tell we can no longer do that. We have to really get ourselves focused on revenues for the town, for the good of the schools. We can't do it on the backs of the taxpayers any longer. So what we're trying to do is educate ourselves from these numbers, and we thank you for putting in the correct numbers and help us understand them now. It will be the next phase. So we'd like an opportunity to actually come back when this is done to just have maybe a half hour or an hour on your agenda to talk about that.
I think that's a good idea because we can talk about some of the things like per pupil expenditures and how they've changed over the years and the different types of state and federal funding that's available now that wasn't available then, et cetera. So I think that's a good idea. So what we'll do is once you present this, hopefully you'll do this Monday night at the Selectmen's meeting,
that's the goal.
And then probably not the 8th, but maybe at our meeting on the 22nd, we can have you come in and talk about it unless you have a meeting that night. So we'll have to, you shouldn't, right? No, if you meet.
No, we'll meet on the
1st and the 15th.
1st and 15th.
So maybe we'll have you come in on the 22nd to go more in depth into this plan.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thanks
Any
very much.
questions? Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
See you later.
Thanks for keeping the agenda a mess for us.
Yeah. Okay, now let's get back to continued business. I believe we have the MSBA SSBC update. I think-
Yes, we do.
Okay.
In your packet, I provided a brief overview of what's taken place since the last meeting. And on October 18th, high school principal John Bernardi and I were sworn in by Town Clerk Barbara Statz as voting members of the Secondary School Building Committee. So our last Secondary School Building Committee was held on Tuesday, October 19th, from 6:30 to 7:45, and it was held here in the middle school library. The feasibility study agreement has been received by the school district, so we now have a copy. That copy has been sent electronically to our town administrator, who is then passing it on to town council for town council's review. In addition, the certificate of legal counsel was also passed on so that town council can put their letterhead on this particular certificate and verify who will be signing invoices on behalf of the town. Once that certificate is completed, then the FSA, also known as the Feasibility Study Agreement, will be signed and sent to the MSBA for their approval. Once that's done, or I should say in tandem with that being done, we need to have people trained on the progress payment system by the BA. And those trainings are held on Fridays at 10 a.m. There is a request for at least one person from the district and one person from the town who will be signing invoices to attend. So at the last SSBC meeting, there is a subcommittee that will review all invoices from the Secondary School Building Committee, and that includes Finance Committee member Don Kelleher and Phil Dardino. And so Phil will be attending this training. And I've asked, once we identify who will be signing the invoices on the town side through that certificate of legal counsel that's being done, and I believe it's going to be Joe Tassoni, he will also need to attend. But I'm in contact with Greg Balukonis, the town administrator, to determine if that's the case.
Okay.
And depending upon the date, I will probably be the representative attending unless Jerry wants to attend on behalf of the school district.
We can talk about it.
Okay. We have 3 dates on a Friday, and so we'll try to make that work. Also, the draft of the request for services for the owner's project manager has been completed. And many thanks to Carl Nelson for the hours that he put in to develop a rough draft. I've also received a document from Brad Dorr, who assisted with identifying what also needs to be in this particular document. So we have a selection subcommittee of the Secondary School Building Committee that will be getting together tomorrow night to sit with me to review the draft RFS document. I've sent a copy out electronically. It is about 58 pages.
That's to hire the OPM, right? The
That's
RFS
correct.
to hire the OPM. Okay.
To hire the owner's project manager. So we're going to review that tomorrow night. After that review, we can submit it to the MSBA for their approval. They will review it, send it back to us with any tracked red line changes, and then we make those recommended changes, and then we send it back to them for final approval, which then means we can advertise for the OPM. We have a targeted date in the RFS of November 8th, 2010, to get this RFS on the Central Register as well as Compass and in the transcript.
I want to say that getting this package made me feel a little warm inside because we actually have some real documents that we're moving forward on a project now. And that feels really good. And they're actually out of like the 35 line items where we've already completed 7 or 8 of them. So we're 20% of the way along the way. That made me feel really good and to get this. I'll open it up. Any questions or comments? Because I have some questions, but I don't know if the rest of the committee has any questions.
I just have a question. I just want to just review again the timeline when this goes out and is listed in the Central Register and we promote it. What's the timeline for the hire?
Well, there's a whole process that we need to go through that's all outlined in the RFS. But I believe the final date for hire, well, we need to send the finalists' name and the whole package to MSBA, and we identified December 13th as when that will be submitted. We need to submit about 3 weeks prior to the MSBA's planning board meeting for hiring the OPM. They have not come out yet with their schedule of meetings for 2011, but it's always the first Monday of the month. The first Monday of January is the 3rd, so it's right after the holiday. So there's no way of knowing if they're going to still have the meeting on the 3rd or if it will be pushed back a week. But we need to make sure our package is submitted to MSBA in plenty of time to be on that agenda for the 3rd of January,
Thank you.
2011.
Just if I recall correctly, looking through the document, they're putting us on a little bit of a faster timeline. They have I believe they have June for the approval date by the MSBA of this project, which is fine. I mean, the quicker the better, but I think they had June 2011. We have been talking about maybe July or August even, so they've actually seemed to have sped the project up a little bit.
Well, we set the timelines
Okay.
based on what they are telling us in terms of recommendations, but these timelines are guidelines.
Okay, so
we're
they're
not
flexible.
held to them
Okay.
as fast, deadlines. So
right.
there's some flexibility in these timelines,
good.
but they want us to approximate.
One of the questions I had is, it states that for the feasibility study, the reimbursement will be at a rate of 45.11%.
That's correct.
Then it also states that as the preliminary reimbursement rate for any project that's approved, but then there's a list of categories that it looks like we could get more points for. So my question is, can we get more reimbursement points if we meet some of those goals?
It's a very good question. In my book, there's a phone call to Katie Timmons tomorrow. Colin and I were reviewing that today, and we were talking about a document that's already been submitted on behalf of the district that really outlined all of the maintenance that had been done, and if you'll notice, there's a possibility of gaining up to 2 points
Right.
simply for maintenance.
Right.
So I had some questions for Katie around that document already being submitted and no values in those
that
categories.
was my question.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure when that gets populated, but that's part of the FSA.
Okay, so those would go in after the
That's my
feasibility
question.
study.
I need
Okay.
to find out, how do we gain those points and when do they get put in?
Okay.
I believe that what happens, this is not gospel, but I believe what happens is that in the end, we will have a number come back, a percentage of the total project
Mhm.
that MSBA will help us with.
Okay.
And if we go ahead with that, then retroactively, the 45 or whatever percent will increase on all of it. This will be retroactively pulled back in, this feasibility study portion,
Okay.
so that we'll get it on the whole project
Okay.
rather than leaving this at a lower percentage.
And one other comment and then one other question. I know there's been concern about this is a high school project. That's the enrollment they asked for. Well, it's interesting. After talking to you today, I read through the documents again, Kathy, and it's clear in there that the scope of the feasibility study can be updated and changed from time to time as mutually agreed on by both parties. To me, that says that if we start this feasibility study and we say we really need to address both our high school and our middle school, that they will listen to that. I'm not saying that that's what the case, but that's what we want it to be. But that made me feel better about this process because there is an opportunity to change the scope of the feasibility study, and I think that's important to know that we have that opportunity to do that. The last question I have is, it does state in there that previous feasibility studies will be reviewed and can be accepted, not as the final document, but we have done, and I gave you a copy of that tonight, an extensive feasibility study, and I believe it was before, it says anything before September 2006 is eligible for potential reimbursement if they accept it. So my question is, have we even discussed the previous feasibility study with them? And Jerry, you were on the committee at that time, which went into a lot of detail on a lot of different options. And do we want to take parts of that and submit it to MSBA?
Well, the answer is we haven't, but I think that it seems like things have gone slowly since obviously April town meeting, but they haven't. I think the superintendent and Kyle have done a great job in getting these documents prepared, and I think we're right on the precipice of getting to the point where we're going to start the feasibility study. And at that point, Mel, it probably would be a good time to pull out the prior study that you're talking about, take a look at it, and see how it might fit into what we're trying to do.
And we also did the geological studies, if
That,
you
yeah,
remember.
that we did, and I know that Brad Dorr and Whittier were involved in that too. So, but to answer your question, I think we're right there now as far as getting these documents approved, getting the requests for services out for the project manager, getting the feasibility contract signed and approved, and then starting the feasibility. I think we're all ready to start the feasibility study, and that would be obviously something we'd incorporate into that.
Because one of my issues is if the information is applicable, and one of the things that's interesting about that old study is it was done for a high school enrollment of, I believe, 825 students at the
Right.
time. So
Which-
obviously we'd
which
have to change
obviously, yes.
that. But if that information is applicable and we can save money by not having to do the whole thing over again.
Yeah, I just don't want to mislead people.
No,
into
no,
that.
I know,
Yeah.
but I just think that we need to see if any of that can be used. Because it still applies, I think, a lot of it. Cliff?
I think what you're gonna find is that as we begin the feasibility study, everything that's been done in the past will be pulled out and put on the table.
Okay,
Reviewed, and that'll be a part of the effort.
all right, that's great.
So it'll be incorporated in
Okay.
some way. And as the feasibility study moves along, we're gonna have the state across the table from
Right.
us as we go.